Michael has been, I mentioned dedicated and diligent earlier, but Michael's been very determined to improve his speaking skills. And as he says, he's both willing and also he's able. And he's going to speak to us about the creative process this morning. Take it away, Michael.
5 to 7. So can you do? Okay. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Who can name that song?
That's Run DMC.
Come on.
You don't know that?
Run DMC? No one can name that song.
Notorious B.I.G.
Notorious B.I.G.
I don't know.
Notorious
Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
That's why.
The creative process is 3 stages: fantasy, theory, and fact. Just like Biggie Smalls said, it was all a dream. It starts as a dream. Michael Jordan had a dream. Jeff Bezos had a dream. Jay-Z had a dream. Barack Obama had a dream. I have a dream. You may have a dream. That's how it starts. The Wright brothers also had a dream. It started in their imagination. That's the first stage of the creative process. They used their imagination. They visualized what it would be like to fly an airplane and what it would be like to unlock this kingdom of air travel to the whole entire world. Probably didn't even dawn on them what magnitude it was really going to bring to the whole world. But it started as a fantasy. Orville and Wilbur got together and they said to themselves, hey, what if we really did this? What would it be like to really fly an airplane? They had to use their imagination. And at that time, they were just fantasizing. The masses would tell them they're ridiculous. Who are they to fantasize? They're not going to do it. But they believed. And they had to ask themselves 2 critical questions to turn that fantasy into the next stage of a theory. They had to ask themselves, are we able? Are we able to do this? They may not have even known at that time if they were able to do that. But they believed they were. No one can even guess at the potential that you have. So of course, they were able. And then the second question they had to ask themselves, are we willing? Are we willing to do what it takes? To change what needs to be changed? To study what needs to be studied? To continue in the face of failure? Are we willing to do that? That's a question that they really had to ask themselves. Because it's not going to happen overnight. They had to tell themselves that we are willing to do whatever it takes to see this manifest and become a reality. It took them 5 years. In 1899, they started researching, they started experimenting with kites and gliders. When they answered those questions, that fantasy turned into a theory, and that's when the work began. And for 5 years, they worked and worked and worked. A glider even broke on them. They were using a contraption, and it was supposed to turn one way, and it turned the other, and it failed and crashed. And they were devastated. Orville and Wilbur got together, and they were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We thought it was going to do this, and it didn't. Shoot, we don't know what's going to happen. But then they went back to the question that they asked, are we willing? And they had to continue. And at that point, they were testing, experimenting. They set up a hangar in North Carolina on the beach. Time and time again, there were trial and error. And they took that fantasy, turned it into a theory, and now it's December 17th, 1903. Wilbur Wright is on the beach looking up at his brother Orville flying the plane. And he gets off the ground. And all he could think of was that day in the bike shop when they imagined what it would be like to unlock the kingdom of air travel. And they were just overloaded with joy that their fantasy became a fact. And that's the third stage of the creative process. So the Wright brothers were accredited with inventing, building, and flying the first successful motor-powered airplane. The inventing was the fantasy, the building was the theory, and the flying was the fact. Those are the three stages of the creative process. I'm sure some of you have dreams of what you want to be in this life. You have the ability to do it. Start with the fantasy. Ask yourself those two questions. Am I able and am I willing? Turn it into a theory. Start the work. It's not going to be easy, but you have to continue in the face of failure. It's not going to happen overnight. There's something called the law of gender, where there's an incubation or gestation period for all creations. And we figured it out with pregnancy, with some seeds, but we don't know what it is for your dream. And you have to find that out. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I got so lost in this meeting, I forgot my duty. Excellent job. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right.
So, let me introduce Jason again for a couple of minutes.